and so it's kind of from that perspective. The other thing I do at C2C is from that perspective that I'm going to talk a little bit about how prisons impact the communities that we work with in Bellingham. The other thing I do at Community to Community is work on gender justice also. And, you know, weaving gender justice lens through everything that we do, through the food sovereignty that we work that we do, creating and maintaining access for low-income immigrants and farm worker families to have access to the foods that, you know, that many of them harvest. To talk about the pesticides that are in our foods, you know, to talk about the genetic modification of corn with young people and with folks, including folks that are also in queer communities of color as well. So I just wanted to share a little bit that racial profiling is a big part of the lives of immigrant youth of color in Bellingham and Whatcom County. I have a son in middle school and a daughter who's 5 in elementary school. And one day, you know, I'm having a conversation with him and I asked him, hey, so, you know, what happens at your school? You know, do you ever see bullying or, you know, I mean, he's my son and he sees us do this work all the time, so, you know, do you see racism in your school? And he said, well, you know, sometimes people call my South Asian classmate, my classmate who I think is Indian, they call him terrorist, but, you know, everybody just laughs and nobody says anything about it. Or, you know, the words, you're so gay, get thrown around every day at school, you know, or really frighteningly, I just raped that test, and, you know, it's just like normal for them to say that, and nobody says anything, he said. He said nobody says anything because everybody, you know, will just say, oh, we're just kidding. Why are you taking things so seriously? And so one time we were asked to offer workshops at a family gathering in a different middle school in the same city. And we asked the youth, you know, what do you want to talk about? And they said they wanted to talk about being bullied for being Latinos, or being bullied for being poor, or people calling them, you know, calling them names. And so when we went to the school district and we told them, hey, we have this, you know, how to identify and strategize around racism in school. And the school district came down very quickly on us and said, you can't use the word racism, you can't use the word sexism, and you can't talk about suicide, you can't talk about any of that stuff because we've worked really hard for the school to lose its reputation that there's racism in the schools. It's a school that has a very large percentage of students who are Latino and low income. And so the youth identify what's going on in their schools, right? They know what's going on in their schools and they ask us. They ask us to come to their schools and give their teachers training or, you know, give some sort of workshop that allows them to talk to their peers about issues like, they don't have the name for it, but they know when they're being racially profiled, right? They know that punishments that are coming down for them for being late automatically goes into truancy proceedings for school. They know that more of their classmates who are kids of color and poor kids are getting disciplined with suspensions and expulsions. And for the same offenses, you know, well-off kids are not getting that kind of treatment at schools. It is sad to say, but the school-to-prison pipeline is alive and well in Whatcom County. There's several stories that we've had where we've had to go in and work with families for children being going through emergency expulsions because they made a motion that they were shooting somebody at school with their hand, or they had a look-alike, like a toy gun in the playground after school hours, you know, and a teacher found them, and, you know, coincidentally the teacher is not actually, the child thought that the person was a teacher, but this person wasn't a teacher, it was a parent of another child who volunteers for the PTA. And this child, you know, kind of surrendered everything because thinking that this white adult in front of him is a teacher, you know, and he's expelled from school, and we, you know, we have to work really closely with the school system to make sure that, you know, know, because the threat is this is going to go in your permanent record. This child was 9 years old, right? And so, and he, when we asked him, what's happening that you brought that little gun to school, that little toy gun to school, and he said he wanted to tell the people that were calling him names at school because he was the child of a farm worker. He wanted them to stop, and they wouldn't stop. And after that day, they stopped. You know, and so it's kind of these are the kinds of ways that we see law enforcement and the school system working really, really close in hands with each other to funnel young people, you know, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids. When we went to a presentation made by the Whatcom Sheriff's Department about gang enforcement, the police officers said that they specifically have law enforcement targeted for 10-year-old young Latino boys. That's the age that they're targeted in Whatcom County. Even though figures show that the most dangerous gangs in Whatcom County are white supremacist gangs. The most numerous gangs in Whatcom County are white supremacist gangs. But it's 10-year-old boys in middle school that they are targeting as, you know, as dangerous. And so it feeds, and these are the children of the people that we work with, and it feeds straight into the prison system. If it's not going to be the immigration detention centers, then it's, you know, your good old regular prisons that have an overwhelming number of Black and brown folks in there, and poor folks in there. You know, it's pretty apt coming from our communities that it's you're either going to go to jail or you're going to join the military, and either way, it's a really shitty choice for young people, right? And so one of the things that we do, and people might say, you know, gardening, what's that going to do against the prison system, right? But one of the things that we do is, one of the ways that we talk about our work at community to community is to talk about it like, we make the road by walking. There is no road to this other world that we want, where there's a different economy that isn't based on, you know, throwing away the lives of young folks of color. But we haven't seen that world in our lifetimes, and so we make the road by walking and try out things. And one of the things that youth really like, you know, surprisingly, is music. Another thing they really like is planting stuff and eating stuff that they grow themselves. And it creates access for them to have foods for their families that they wouldn't otherwise have locally grown. And so, you know, there's small steps, but we take steps with every aspect of the work that we do, whether it's PMAs or gardening with young people, or holding kitchens, healthy kitchens workshops for women, and we've started developing them for young women in particular, because there's specific issues, health issues, that young women want to do. We want to open healthy kitchens workshops for queer folks. We opened healthy kitchens workshops for men and young men, for them to have issues that they're going to talk about, and talk about health issues that specifically concern men, because we realize that we can't end domestic violence working with women only. Women already know, you know, we know what we need to do to stop it. We need to work with men too, in order for them to understand, you know, different masculinities, different configurations of power in the family that won't lead to replicating maybe what they've seen or what's acceptable in our societies, right? That's kind of a little taste of what we do at community to community. And I wanted to make sure that we have time, a big amount of time for discussion. So I'm going to open it back up to you folks to ask that.
Is this organization community to community only in Bellingham, or is it in other cities also?
Yeah, it's based in Bellingham and Whatcom
Sounds like
County.
it's needed in a lot of places.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I was talking about when we talk about participatory democracy. Community was founded, the organizing model that we do is based on that, the participatory democracy and establishing people's movement assemblies. which was organized with folks from Brazil, from the Third World, the Global South, and again, in a way to create those community governances so communities can identify the problems and also have the solutions ready for those problems. Whether it be for youth to identify what's going on in school and the solutions, which in this case was gardening, music, and access to healthy food. With Angelica and the folks with Linden, which was to be visible and lose that fear and attacking systems of repression. So identifying, I think through, I mean for us, the People's Movement Assembly and community governance and participatory democracy especially has been very useful for us to establishing what's needed and how to create a process where folks feel welcome and empowered to do something about it.
And we also work in solidarity with many other organizations that don't look exactly like us, but we're after the same thing. We want a different world. We may not know exactly how to get there, but we want something. So we have, you know, relationships, for example, with the Solidarity Economy Network, which is a national U.S. organization about how do we build a local economy that protects people and the planet. And, you know, our young people are part of that. The garden that we have, that we're growing, is made up of youth that are getting cooperative training. You know, forming an actual youth co-op, you know, where they learn what the cooperative principles are so that, you know, maybe, we don't know, maybe, you know, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, they'll actually form their own co-ops, and theirs will be, you know, their understanding of cooperative working is going to be, you know, deeply rooted in what they learned as young people. Because, you know, we can talk all day about forming cooperatives, but unless we know how to work cooperatively with each other and we get the chance to practice, we're not going to be able to do it sustainably, right? Because the thing about CCC is that we are a practice-oriented organization. Whatever we teach, we also practice, because we can't get it right just thinking about it. We have to actually practice working. You know, it's easy to say, let's work cooperatively. It's really hard when you come down to like, okay, what are we going to do with this last $80 that we have in our bank account, and to do that together.
Sí, déjenme mencionar tantito acerca de lo que dice Tara de las cooperativas.
So let me mention you briefly something I thought I was talking about cooperatives.
También tenemos una cooperativa de mujeres
We also have a women-run cooperative
y jóvenes.
and young people.
El nombre de la cooperativa es Itaquiusi.
It's named Itaquiusi.
Es en el idioma mixteco,
It's in the Mixtec language.
que quiere decir flor blanca.
That means white flower.
Porque la mayoría de nosotras somos de Oaxaca.
The majority of us are from Oaxaca.
Mujeres que hemos sido víctimas de violencia doméstica.
Women who have been victims of domestic violence.
Sobrevivientes.
Survivors.
Mujeres que sobrevivieron a abuso sexual.
Women that have survived sexual abuse.
Y como dice Tara, tenemos casi 2 años
Like Tara
aprendiendo
said, we have 2 years
que es una
learning
cooperativa.
what is a cooperative.
Pero también lo estamos practicando porque es un poco difícil.
And we're also practicing it because it's a little bit difficult.
Estamos tan acostumbrados a este sistema
We're all accustomed already to this system.
que nada más nos mandan y obedecemos
The one that asks us to do things and we're obedient
por muchos años,
for many years.
y no es fácil
And it's not easy
liberarte de esa opresión.
to liberate yourself from that oppression.
Pero estamos aprendiendo.
But we're learning.
A 2 de estas jovencitas, 16 y 14 años,
2 of the young women, 14 and 16 years old,
ellas les gusta estar en la cooperativa.
they like being in the cooperative.
Lo hacen con gusto, cantan, bailan.
They do it gladly, they sing, they dance.
Y como dice Tara, tenemos que practicarlo para poder seguir enseñando este modelo que C2C tiene.
And like Tara said, we have to keep practicing it to follow this model that C2C has.
Pero también estamos aprendiendo
But we're also learning
a comer más saludable,
to learn how to eat healthy,
a utilizar ingredientes orgánicos.
use organic products.
Hacemos tamales una vez al mes.
We make tamales once a month.
tortillas,
Tortillas.
Con maíz orgánico
with all organic corn
todos los viernes.
every Friday.
Y esto es una manera también de cómo sustentarnos nosotras mismas.
And this is also a way for us to sustain ourselves.
Yo pienso que era mucho mejor
I believe it was way better
como vivíamos antes
than how we used to live
que ahora.
than now.
Ahora los ricos
Now the rich people
son los que están gobernando
are the ones that are governing
todo, hasta la comida,
everything, even to our food.
y ellos entre más dinero tienen, más quieren.
And even with all the money that they have, they want more.
Y a nosotros los pobres nos hacen más pobres.
And for us, the poor people, they make us even more poor.
Y creo que el cambio verdadero va a estar en la práctica,
And the real change is going to be in the practice,
aprendiendo
learning
y haciéndolo.
and doing it.
Gracias.